Welcome to forever, man. Let's go. Come on. This forever. No surrender. Yeah. You know that this right here forever. Go. And there will be no surrender. Now allow me to reintroduce myself. They call me.
You're now tuned in to the Dads Who Live podcast. I'm Joel Staley with my co-host Tyler Gaeta. In this episode, we're talking to my mindset coach, Caleb Moran, where we talk about how to set priorities, how to block out your schedule so you can be the most productive you can possibly be. You guys definitely aren't going to want to miss this one. All right, guys, if you're just tuning in either on the podcast or the Facebook Live here, we're talking to Caleb Moran. Caleb is like one of the not only most motivational dudes I've met in a long time, but he's very down to earth. He's a suave dude. He's like everything we can all aspire to be. He is the mindset coach in my Shed Fat Fast program. A lot of people think they sign up to work with me and it's just like me bugging them all day, but I like to stand on the shoulders of giants, as people say. So, you know, we have Bill as the accountability coach. We have Caleb, who's been acting as our mindset coach for the last 8 weeks, and he's making a hell of an impact on these people. So, Caleb, I mean, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the chat. Do you want to give us a little background of exactly who you are and what you're all about?
Sure, absolutely. First, man, I'd like to say thank you all for having me on. Since I've been a part of your group, man, it's been encouraging just to see dads from all over, people from all over aspiring to be better. And I think that's pretty much the biggest key for anybody is to want to be better than they are today. And so for me, you know, I've kind of shared with you just in talking, you know, as we've kind of come into relationship, my life. And, you know, I think everybody's got a story. And everybody's got kind of a path or a direction that their life is headed. And so for me, you know, I've been coaching clients, whether it's individuals, whether it's companies, organizations, nonprofits, whatever the case may be, for over a decade now. And each person that I've dealt with, whether they're the highest CEO all the way down to one of the lowest guys on the totem pole, everybody who has a passion to change and to grow, they're going to reach that if they have the right tools and the right people on their team to get there. And that's why, you know, I love the group that you have with the Shed Fat Fast, is because, you know, you got people who have a desire, but at their house, they may not have the team. They may not have the environment. So you get people together, you know, even with the Dads Who Lift, you got all these thousands of men together that have a common goal and they're headed a direction. They'll help get each other there. So, man, a little bit about me, you know, where I am today and where I started is night and day. You know, I'm a father of 5. I'm blessed to have 5 wonderful kids, a beautiful wife. You know, it seems like it's a picture perfect relationship, but man, you know, 3 years ago, my son was diagnosed with leukemia. And so we've been battling that. You know, we went from getting in remission to relapse, get back in remission, to now he just had a bone marrow transplant. And then the freaking coronavirus comes out, you know, and that's targeted. You know, one of the people that can be affected the most is those with a low immune system. And that's exactly where my son is right now. So, man, you know, just
how
that
old is
battle. He's 5 years old
5.
now. He was 3 when he got diagnosed. But, you know, just that battle, it affects your mind, man. It affects the way that you parent. It affects the way that you work, your thought life, your motivation. Everything in life can change like that. And it seems like my life has kind of always been a series of big issues that I've had to fight my way through. And one of the things I shared with you before, you know, I was a drug addict, man. I was strung out on drugs and going nowhere fast. At one point in my life, I was living on the streets and just dealing with my addiction and going through all of those things and trying to find my way out. And man, just struggled until finally I hit that point where you say, man, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. And man, I got my life on track. And from there, I began to pursue my dreams and pursue the better version of me that I always felt I could be, but I had another version of me telling me I couldn't be. And so, I think when you get your mindset right, when you set yourself on a goal and you say, there's nothing that's going to take me from this, you'll get there, man. I remember, going to the gym and going, all right, this is it. I'm going to do it. And then a year later, going back to the gym and going, man, I wish I would have stuck with it. How big would I be if I would have been consistent? I think everyone's had those thoughts before. But
I've done that with weight loss for sure, man.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah, like, you start a diet and you fall off a few days later, and then, a month from then, you're like, damn, if I just would have stuck with it, I would have been actually at my goal now. Or you see other guys that did stick with theirs in the group and they're at their goal now, and you're like, damn it,
Yeah.
And that's something we talk about a lot on the mindset coaching calls too, is like that instant gratification versus that long-term happiness. It's like that one voice that's always in your head at 9:00 is very common for dads. It's like, hey man, like, I wonder what's in that cupboard right now. You could have some fruit snacks.
You've had a long day. You deserve it.
Yeah. And there's that voice. And then somewhere in the background, it's either quiet or you can really work on making it overpower that other voice. Is like, no, man, that's not the right choice. You want to hit this goal. Like, don't do it. It's just which of those voices you're listening to.
Sure, man. Yeah, and I think too, it comes to a place where you have to ask yourself, why do I want this? And, you've got to be a part of something that's bigger than you. Yeah, we can go to the gym because we want to look good and we want a body that's attractive, and we want to say we lift more than the guy next to me. But for me, like, when I look at my life, I think one of the most important titles that I have, because I've had a lot of titles, man, different positions and different accolades that I've reached. But the greatest title I've ever been given is dad. And for me,
100%.
Yeah, man, I mean, I get it. Like, let's all get big and let's all lose weight and let's, shed the fat and get ripped. And that's great. But if it's not making me better in every aspect of my life, then there's some selfish gain there. And I think, especially for the dads who lift and all that group, what's amazing about that group is you have these guys that are in a position, they're a dad. And when you look at statistics of what's going on in our world today, some of the worst stats, whether it's incarceration, whether it's addiction, whatever the case may be, there's always an issue with a dad. Either those dads weren't present. I think the last statistic I read, 95% of incarcerated men didn't have a dad in the home. 95%. That's nuts, right? So when you get a dad who's determined to better himself, that's huge, even if it's just in the area of fitness, because whatever you bring discipline to, it's going to spill over into other areas of your life. And so just choosing to make yourself better in one area is going to have that ripple effect in other areas. And ultimately, when you're leading somebody like a family or a child, the better that you are, the better you're going to allow them to be. When you raise the ceiling of your leadership or of your life, and those that are following you or in your influence, they have more room to grow, if that makes sense. So I think it's huge, man.
Yeah, you said a lot right there, man. So how did you make that change from drug addict struggling with that to now, a successful dad of 5, entrepreneur, success coach, all that stuff? What was that breaking point, or when did you draw the line in the sand and say, all right, I'm tired of being this Caleb. I want to become this Caleb, and here's a route I'm going to take to do it?
I think, no doubt, my faith in God, my faith in Christ had a big shift in that. And I think anyone who is in that lane understands that.
And you're a pastor now too, aren't you?
Yeah, I was a pastor.
You were a pastor.
We stepped away from that last year, and now we just kind of travel and speak. And so I speak in churches, but I also speak, I do coaching for companies, and I'll speak to whoever wants to listen, honestly. But no doubt my faith in Christ was the big turning factor in that. But I think too, there's a lot of people who believe in Christ or believe in God, but they still suck as a human. And so it's not just a belief, but I think I had to have a determination on what do I want in life? What do I feel like my purpose is in life? And once I caught a vision of something, or, like you could say a carrot that I could place before me, once I had that vision of what I wanted to be, I caught a glimpse of the future me. I just never let him out of my sight. And yes, I failed. And yes, I messed up. And yes, I got off track multiple times, hundreds of times. But I always put back on the lenses of vision that saw that guy that I wanted to be. And then, man, no doubt, they say who you are in the next 5 years is determined by the people you meet and the books you read. So I hated reading. I never wanted to read. Matter of fact, once I got married, I would have my wife read books to me while I drove because I just hated reading. This before audiobooks came out. I hated reading that much. And once I jumped into reading and just made it a goal of mine, my life began to change because I already know what I know, but I don't know what somebody else knows. And so when I began to read and educate myself, dive into, leadership books or self-help books or growth books, it really began to help me. And then I had to get around new people. I had to get rid of the people that were dragging me into the drugs and the alcohol and all the negative stuff. And I had to get around people that actually had a plan for their life. And I found people that I said, man, I may not want to be them, but I do want to go the direction they're going. And so I just surrounded myself with new people.
Every person in your circle,
most people fail because of that.
Yeah, every person in your circle should have at least one thing that you want, man.
Absolutely,
they might not live, they might have everything that you want or live the exact life that you want to live yourself. But I've got certain friends that they have the success business wise that I want, or they have the money that I want, or they have the family life that I want, or they have the relationship that I want. And those are the people that I surround myself with. Like, not everybody's going to have every single thing. But if you can put yourself around people that are always elevating you and challenging you to elevate, then you're always going to elevate, and it's crazy.
So true.
I like what you said about to me, mindset's everything too. So I 100% agree. And, faith is a huge thing. You have to, but at the same time, so faith is number one. And then you have, what I heard is you had to manifest it. That's part of manifesting is you have to be able to see it. And you have to be able to believe it. You have to be able to believe that you can do it. And like you said, I really like how you put it that I never let that guy out of my sight. And that's part of manifesting is I see what I want. I'm going to strive towards it on a daily basis. And I believe I can get it. It's not going to happen overnight. But if you're doing those things and you're on that path and surrounding yourself with the right people, it's eventually going to come.
Absolutely, man. I think for people who want to be better, the intention is there. But you can't live by intentions. You got to live by intentionality, meaning you got to be very intentional in what you do. Because just to say, man, I didn't mean to do that, but it happened, Go ahead. What were you saying? I
just said, what you think.
Yeah, no doubt, man. I mean, I've coached people from every aspect, and you got guys that come to you and say, I didn't mean to screw up and lose my business, or I didn't mean to screw up and lose my marriage, but it happened, and what they're saying is my intentions weren't to do that. But it happened, right? But when you dig into it and say, but what were you intentionally doing to prevent that? 9 times out of 10, the answer is nothing. Nobody ever really has a plan for growth. They just desire it. Nobody ever really has a plan to double their finances or double their business. They just hope that if they're a good person, the universe is going to give them, something and it's just going to happen. Doesn't happen that way, man. You got to set a plan. You got to determine something. You got to develop something. You have to put something together. And then you got to put feet to it, man. It's one thing to have a vision, but it's one thing to start walking that vision out. And I think as you walk that vision out, you begin to make your critiques and your tweaks and your edits because you realize I started that way, but I think I need to kind of shift it this way a little bit. And as you just run the analytics, so to say, of how your life is going, you begin to make those adjustments along the way. It's like an airplane that's on autopilot. That autopilot is tweaking that plane all the time. I mean, the entire flight, it's tweaking that aircraft. And even though you think it's an autopilot that I'm just doing it, it's constantly making adjustments. And so for us, I think as entrepreneurs or as leaders or people who have a desire to be better, you've got to constantly be a student, be willing to learn, be willing to take correction, be willing to take instruction, and make those tweaks without your pride getting in the way to get to that place you want to be at.
For sure. Yeah. Thoughts turn into things too. Like thoughts turn into action. So if you get your thoughts right, then your actions follow.
If you actively do it, for sure. Because there's always people that think they're gonna, staying with the fitness thing. Yeah, I'm gonna hit that goal. I just haven't done it yet. And they keep thinking it yet until they actually take the steps. And what you said about environment, that's funny because I was just thinking about this morning. I wake up and we were talking about on our last podcast, I'm in a starter home with 2 adults, a baby, and just kids' toys all over the place. The first feeling I feel when I wake up is like, I cannot be in this environment and be productive. It's going to be weighing in on me. And then so me and Amy pick up the whole house, all of a sudden feel way better. And I had that kind of surreal moment where I'm like, wow, it's funny when you dive a little bit deeper, how your environment affects you, whether it's just, shit all over the floor or if it's the people in your circle. It's going to sculpt your personality and the actions you take and all that stuff. So you said,
no doubt, man.
You said like clearing some people out of your circle was a big step for you. If someone finds themselves in a similar position where they have buddies that might be, drinking too much or drugging too much or just always in the wrong place at the wrong time, what advice would you give to people like that about cutting those ties or however you'd recommend doing it?
Yeah, great question, man. For me, this is how I had to view it. Time is valuable. You're never going to get your time back. The only time you get back is the return on your investment, right? And so if I spend time with my son and I pour into him and I affirm him and I teach him good leadership, maybe I'll never get that time back once it's gone, but I'll see a return on my investment in my future, right? Same thing with giving money into an IRA or giving money into a mutual fund, whatever the case may be. So I had to look at my relationships and say, look, which relationships am I spending time and which relationships am I investing time? Because any time that I'm spending is expensive, man. It's costing me something. I'm not getting anything from it. It's draining me. And I remember one night, my wife and I, we had this couple that would come over to our house once a week. Not even bad people, man, great people. But I started realizing, like, if I'm going to look at my life, am I better for having them in my life? And I don't mean that arrogantly, but I just realized, like, every time they came around, they were negative. They were talking bad about somebody. They had some issue. They had drama they were bringing over. And it started affecting the way I thought. I started catching their offense. I started catching, their mindset. And so my wife and I just took an inventory of our relationships and said, which relationships are investing into us or which relationships are we spending time we shouldn't be? And then on the flip, what relationships are we investing into others? So I just began to look at all my relationships that way. And the ones that were costing me time, I just distanced myself for a little while. I didn't have to call them and say, screw you, I don't want to talk to you anymore. You're a waste of my time. When they called and said, you want to go eat? Like, no, man, we got plans tonight because I've got things I need to do. And once I began to see my time as valuable, I began to change the way I invested it and the way that I managed it. Because a lot of times we talk about time management, but really it's priority management. I can manage my time throughout my day, but my wife's got to be a priority. My kids have to be a priority. I got to be a priority, right? And as long as I let my responsibilities choke out my priorities, I'm going to spend all my time on things that aren't gaining me any type of interest for the future. So I would tell anybody who's listening, man, if you've got people that they're not really bettering you, and not that you've got to be a selfish person where I'm not going to be a friend with anybody who doesn't better me, because no doubt you need to be somebody who's bringing people up to where you are as well. But you got to put people in your circle and in your environment that are investing in you.
I agree with you, man. And it's things happen for a reason. Like I've got a buddy of mine, you know, Kenny.
Oh yeah.
So Kenny and I used to party a lot back in the day, and we were both like problematic, you know, teenagers and up into our early 20s. And it got to a point to where every time me and this dude were together, you know, there was either a fight or cops or, you know, something. It was just not good. And so we both like collectively took a break from each other, you know, and so we didn't talk for, I want to say it was like two or 3 years. I mean, we took a long break from each other, and we ended up just running back into each other. And we both grown up at that point in time. We had both grown up and both come a long way. Both had children now. And now he's like one of my best friends again. But it's a different type of best friend. Like when we get together, you know, we're supportive. He's someone I can call and talk to and get good advice about anything, you know?
Yeah.
So
I think there's some good distancing that has to happen sometimes. You know, similar story, man. I had friends that when I got out of the drug scene, they stayed in, you know, and now 20 years later, they're all still heroin addicts and in and out of jail and in and out of rehab. And when I talk to them, because I never dropped them in the sense that I'm not going to be here for you. I'm not going to help you when you need me, but I'm not going to go sit on the couch with you while you shoot up and, you know, do that whole scene anymore, because it's worthless. It's useless. It's not taking me in the direction that I want to be. Now, have I gone into those places and helped bring them out and help get them set up? Absolutely, man. But I had to have that distance, because if not, if I go back into the same environment that entices me, I'll just become a product of that environment. But if I get around a new environment long enough and set new habits and set new boundaries and break mindsets, even wrong mindsets, and man, when I do get around those things, it's a different version of me. You know, it's like right now with the fasting and stuff I've been doing, I was around all kinds of candy and hot tamales and Twizzlers last night. Dude, like back just a few weeks ago, I would have been eating it, you know, but now it's like, I'm in a fast right now. I'm not going to do that. And it's only because I've distanced myself from something long enough that I've been able to make a new decision to go a new direction. So I agree with you 100% with that, man.
I've said it in past podcasts, but you're either going forward or you're going backward. You know,
True.
like you're either moving forward or you're moving backward. And it's not selfish to take care of yourself. Like I used to always be so selfless. Or there was a point in my life where I was so selfless that I thought, oh man, I'm being selfish if I do what I need to do, or if I look at what I need to do. And it's not, man. You have to take care of yourself. It's just like, I've said this in another podcast too, but it's just like when the plane's going down or there's an issue with the plane, they say, put your mask on first, you know, because you got to take care of you before you can put your mask on anybody else. It's not selfish at all. You have to take care of yourself. And like you said, you can still be there for people. It's not like we're telling people like, hey, you're dead to me. You know, like there's not one person that couldn't call me. Even if I have like some hard feelings for him or whatever, there's not one person that couldn't call me and I wouldn't be there for him. But you're not going to be in my everyday circle because I'm doing other things. You know, like anytime I stop to look backwards, I used to always have these people in my life that I would try to bring up, and it's good to try to bring people up. But what I realized is every time I was stopping to check and see where they were at, like, are you still with me? Are you still coming? I'm not moving forward. I'm stopping my own progress to see where they're at. And what I've learned is that like, I don't ever want to stop my progress. And when I continue my progress, like some people might fall back, but then the right ones fill in.
Yeah.
You know?
No doubt, man. I think you nailed it right there, because that was definitely an issue of mine. You know, when I was going through all the crap I was going through, I was still such a generous person to other people. Dude, I'd give them the shirt off my back. I'd give them my time. I'd meet them at 3 a.m. I'd help them with whatever they were going through. But I was giving so much of myself to others that I was never giving any of myself to myself. And I felt condemned, you know, like if I spent time on me, I almost condemned myself, because I felt like, well, that's selfish. I'm thinking about me instead of thinking about someone else. But I had to understand, dude, like there's a healthy side of you being selfish for a little while, to say, I need to take some time and work on me so that whatever me is a part of doesn't keep sucking and doesn't keep, you know, blowing up in front of my face and failing. Because as long as you got issues, everywhere you go is going to have those issues. You know, like when I deal with my friends, even myself, when I was going through it, every one of my friends that was a drug addict, they would always go, you know what, forget it, I'm moving. And they'd move to another state. And I'm going, yeah, but the problem is you're still going to be there. You're the issue. I don't care if you move to another state, you're taking you with you. Your crap is always going with you. And until you detox and purge all that crap out of your life, everywhere you arrive, you're going to have that smell with you. And so I think it's good, man, to take some time and really, evaluate what you need to do for yourself and work on it, because it definitely will get you further than where you are.
Caleb, you helped me out last week, and again, past podcast guys. So sorry if I sound like a broken record, but you weren't actually on this podcast. One thing you did for our program and your mindset coaching, which really helped me out, was you talked about schedule blocking. Yeah. Can you go a little bit more into that and also give just whatever few tricks you have up your sleeve just for organizing your life and setting your priorities so you can start knocking these things out?
Yeah, no doubt, man. So anybody that I ever coach, all my clients, when they come to me, I don't care if they're coming to me because they want to be better, and just a human, or they want to take their company a new direction. They want to take their family a new direction, whatever the case may be. Everybody, doesn't matter if you're the CEO, the COO, the CFO, or just the guy working hourly. It all starts with your schedule, your calendar. What you do daily determines what you're going to do weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually. Your daily routine is a prophecy of your future. If you show me your calendar, I can show you where you're going to be in a year. No doubt, man. Same thing with, your financial investments, how you spend your money. I can tell you where you're going to be in a year. And so what I help my clients do, I take them through a 5-step process. And step 1 is understanding what are my priorities. That's the first and foremost. When I stood in front of my son's hospital bed, and he was 3 years old, and, just 2 hours before I was talking to him, we were hugging, we were loving on him. And then 2 hours later, he's laying in the bed in a coma. My priorities shifted. I could care less if my yard was mowed. I could care less if my work was getting done at work. I could care less what was happening in this friend's life over here. My priorities shifted immediately. And I began to go through my mind and say, man, he's 3 years old. That those thoughts come what if this is it? What if he doesn't wake up? What if he dies on this hospital bed? Did I throw the football with him? Did I teach him, the things that a father would teach? Did I show him the right example? And immediately, man, I began to look at him and go, now, wait a second. What about my 12-year-old, my 14-year-old? What about them? What about my wife? Have I been all that I need to be? And right then I had to ask myself, what are my priorities? When I'm laying on maybe my deathbed one day, I'm not going to say, I wish I worked more. I wish I put in a 60-hour week instead of a 50-hour week. I'm going to wish I spent more time with my kids, and wish I spent more time with my wife, and wish I bettered myself in my faith and my religion, or whatever the case may be. And so I always tell people, before we get to any of the responsibilities you have, let's list your priorities. And most people, they get hung up right there. They don't know what their priorities are. And so we begin to establish, what are my priorities? And priorities change, as years go by. But so step 1 is list your priorities. And then step 2 would be begin to spread those priorities throughout your week. So for me, my kids are a priority to me. My wife is a priority to me. And so fitness became a priority to me. I wanted to work out. I only have one body, and I want to make sure I take care of it. And so that had to be a priority to me. My own self-development and growth, reading and educating and whatever it may be, that became a priority to me. So I wrote all those down, and then I had to look at my week and say, okay, when can I schedule these or spread these throughout my week? And then the third step was, once I got all my priorities listed and I got them spread throughout my week and scheduled, then I had to look at my responsibilities. And that's, taking my kids to school, basketball, football, dance, whatever it is that I have to take my kids to, my honeydews and all that stuff. And I wrote down all my responsibilities, which are far more than my priorities. And your responsibilities are always going to to outlist or outnumber your priorities. The reason why I do my responsibilities at step 3 and not step 1 is because if you don't schedule your priorities, your responsibilities will choke them out every time, hands down. And you'll look and your wife will say, I wish we would go on a date. And you'll go, I know I need to spend more time with you, but I got so much crap going on at work. Or your girlfriend or whoever the case may be. But if it's a priority, they'll know it. I want my wife to know she's a priority. I want my kids to know they're a priority to me. So therefore, what's a priority gets my time, right? Once you list your responsibilities, then you begin to just schedule the crap out of those. You know, it's like that old movie, Scarface. You know, I always tell my clients, you know, he gets that gun and he looks at everything in his line of sight and he says, you know, say hello to my little friend. He just starts spraying everybody. That's what you got to do with your responsibilities, man. My calendar, I mean, it started at 4 a.m. And it was, I mean, every 30 minutes, every 15 minutes, every hour, you were seeing boom, 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 boom. And people say, well, yeah, but at that point, I become a slave to my calendar. Well, yeah, but if your calendar is intentional, you're becoming a slave to priorities. You're becoming a slave to, you know, for me, free time was a priority. I had to schedule in free time just to like sit and stare at a wall because I'm so high strung, man. I'll work 115 hours a week and then try to go home and do something else. And I've done it. My blood pressure shoots up and it's not healthy. And so once I put all my responsibilities out there, then the 5th step is what I call nickel and diming your time. You know, back when I used to smoke, man, I used to smoke like 3 packs a day when I was about to quit. I was smoking like crazy, man.
Oh, that's a lot of
And
cigarettes.
I remember it's a lot, dude.
Holy cow.
If I was drinking, I was smoking 5 packs. You know, you go.
Wow.
I worked construction, so I was lighting cigarettes off of cigarettes, man. And so I remember when I'd run out of money, you know, you're fiending for that next cigarette, and you got to go get a pack of smokes. And so you're digging for change everywhere in your house, in your car, and it's like every nickel and every dime you found was like gold because you knew it was getting you one step closer to that cigarette. And then I remember even as a kid, you know, the ice cream truck comes down the street and you're like, oh my God, and you're frantic and you're running around and you're looking and you're digging and your dad's giving you a couple of quarters and you find stuff over here. Every nickel and dime is like gold to you. You'd be surprised how many nickels and dimes you have in your day. 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there. That if you look at your calendar, you'll say, okay, I got this appointment from 12 to 12:30, but my next appointment's not till 1 o'clock. Dude, what can I do with that 30 minutes right there? I'm going to milk my time. I'm not just going to let it be wasted. And so I remember one day I was sitting with a client, I was coaching, and we were at a coffee shop, and I purposely scheduled that client for 1 hour, but I noticed it could go longer if I wanted it to. But when I looked at my calendar before I went in, I saw I had an extra 15-minute window. And so I texted my wife real quick and I said, hey, babe, where you at? Because she's a priority, right? So I texted her and said, where you at? Man, I'm actually right down the street. And I said, all right, perfect. I'm leaving here. She was getting her nails done. I'm at a coffee shop. I'm bringing you some coffee. I'm going to sit with you for 15 minutes and just hang out. Then I'm going to my next appointment. I could have let that meeting go over 15 minutes. But it was more valuable to me to invest in a priority. So I grabbed some coffee, met with my wife, sat with her, talked with her. Dude, she felt like, you know, she was $1 million that I just interrupted my day to bring her coffee at the nail salon and sit with her for 15 minutes. But it's a priority to me, right? And so that priority to somebody else could be, you know, calling your mom or your dad or a child. And so my car, when I'm driving from meetings, if that's a 15-hour drive, that's intentional time now. I'll put on a podcast. I'll put on an audio book. I'll call and follow up on clients or heaven forbid, man, I call my mom, you know, because your moms always wish you called them. So I'll call my mom and check in, see how she's doing. So I think if you can do those 5 steps, man, you list your priorities, you spread them throughout your week, you list your responsibilities, you begin to fill in the slots of your calendar with all of those, and then you learn to nickel and dime your time and really milk your day, you will have a week that whenever people say, I just don't have enough time, what they're really saying is I'm
It's
not disciplined in my schedule and I don't have priorities. Bottom line, man, we all have the same 24 hours in a day. There's people doing it right now, so it can be done for sure.
Yeah, if it's a priority, you will find time.
And that's
Absolutely,
been a real wake
man.
up call for me because like I've talked about, I'm going to start stretching for 10 minutes every day. I've been talking the same shit for like 2 years now. And after you did your training on the setting up your schedule and like I had time to stretch and I find I'm like doing something else. I'm like, well, apparently that's just not a priority. I got plenty of time. And when I tweaked my calendar, like you're talking about, I had way more time than I ever thought I did had you asked me prior to that.
Yeah, man. Well, that's the thing. If you look at it, just write out every hour from midnight to midnight and ask yourself what you do. And for me, man, there was a season of my life where I was working 115 hours a week. And so I needed more time for work. And so I had to look and I said, man, what am I doing sleeping 5 hours? I need to back that up to 3 hours, and as crazy as that sounds, I had to do that for that season, but I knew this too shall pass. And so then I just made some changes and I had to rearrange my life and I had to do some things because at the end of the day, man, there's no job that is worth me losing my marriage over. There's no job worth me being a bad dad over. There's no job worth me falling into an addiction over. And so if that responsibility is making me a worse version of who I want to be, either I got to change the way I go at it or I got to change what I'm involved in.
That's what I was going to say,
sometimes
man.
You got to do it, man.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because taking care of myself it used to not be a priority at all. But taking care of myself now has become one of my top priorities, taking care of myself, my family, and my son. So like to me, it's more important to make sure I'm getting my sleep. Like I'll move things around to make sure, like living off 3 hours a night, that's just not enough for me. I can't do it.
No doubt, man.
I'm like a zombie going through each day,
Right.
And honestly, I'm more like in it, productive and with people when I do get my sleep than had I tried to just go off 3 hours of sleep every night. No,
it's so true, man. And you've got to get to a place where you do value who you are. And really, I think that's ultimately the word you got to see is do you value who you are?
And check in.
If you don't value that, man, then you'll never invest in yourself.
Yeah, it's funny. I had so I'm from what I'm hearing, I've actually never met you before, but we're a lot of like go. There's times where I won't take a piss, when I got to piss because I'm so busy. Like, oh no, I can hold it. And then, I held my piss for like 2 or 3 hours because I had to get my mission done. Whatever I was doing, man. I had to get it done. Or I won't eat all day or whatever because I'm just moving. I'm go. Shoot, I forgot.
Doesn't take a piss, but then has to drink water in the middle of the sentence.
I forgot where I was going with that. Dang it.
Caleb, where would you recommend? You mentioned books, and I want to get your take on this too. Where do you recommend? You said leadership books. You said self-development. Both of you. I mean, what do you recommend? A, if you're first starting out, or B, if you've done a little bit of dabbling in self-development before. What are like your top 3 to 5 books that you rattle off the top of your head you'd recommend?
Sure, man. So there's a book by John Maxwell called The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Phenomenal book, man. And depending on, if you're a fast reader or a slow reader, it doesn't matter, man. Just take one law and focus on it for a month if you have to. That book will really put things in perspective. Anything John Maxwell writes is phenomenal. Developing the Leader Within, Leadership Shift. He's got all of these different books that he writes. Also, Simon Sinek is a really good author. He's got a book called Start With Why. That's a phenomenal book, I think, for people to understand. We all can ask how, but we all know what to do and how to do it, but we don't know why we're doing it. And when you can start with the why, like I joined the fitness group and I got more serious about my fitness because I had a why. I wanted to be a healthier version of me. I wanted to set a good example for my kids. I wanted my wife to be proud, of her husband. And so I had a why. That why will always fuel you. So if you could get a hold of some John Maxwell stuff, I mean, obviously Zig Ziglar's a great guy, all those leadership gurus you can come across. But I think too, one of the most important things would be is to get a coach, man. Find a coach that you can afford. Find a coach that wants to invest in you. And I remember when I got coached myself, because I even believe I coach coaches. And as a coach, I have a coach. So I believe everybody needs a coach.
Every coach needs a coach. Like I'm in Facebook groups with online coaches, and it just bugs the shit out of me when they're like, "Hey, has anyone worked with these coaches before? Thinking about it, but I don't have all that much money." Like, how are you a coach and you're not going to have a coach? You're like the biggest hypocrite I've ever met in my life. So sorry to interrupt you there, but
that's funny. I actually remember
what you're doing.
I actually remember what the hell I was going to say and where I was going. So I hired a life coach, so I did 3 months. Actually, I think I have one more session with them and we're done with our 3-month first deal. But I hired a life coach, and at the beginning of every session, their video, like Zoom sessions, a lot like this. At the beginning of each one, he had me do a check-in where you go through your body and you check in with yourself and say everything that you're feeling. And it's funny when I first started, I would check in with myself and I would give explanations for everything, like, oh, my neck hurts because this, or, I slept wrong, or I'm hungry because I didn't get time to eat today, or this, that, and the other. And it's like, you're justifying why you're at where you're at, and you're kind of being submissive to your own needs because you're saying, this is why, and it doesn't really matter. And so it's crazy. Like, so he stopped me and he's like, no, I don't care why. I just want to know, like, check in with yourself and see what you're feeling, what you need. Like, oh, my eyes are tired right now. I'm exhausted. But I'm still excited. And so we started doing that. And it's crazy once you actually check in with yourself. This is where I was going. Then you actually know what you need, and then you are able to actually focus on yourself and make sure that you are the best version of yourself. Because when you're, head down, just grinding 24/7, it's easy to lose that and to get exhausted and lose yourself.
Very true. And that's why you drank water, because you checked in with yourself. And
I did. I was like, man, I'm thirsty. And I was trying to fill time because I was like, man, I got a mind fart right now. Yeah. But I mean, it happens to the best of us.
Hey, we actually got to start wrapping up. Caleb, how can people support you, man? Like I said, I've gotten to know you over the last 8 weeks.
Sure.
Not only are you kicking ass with the program, but you're changing the mindsets of everyone in the group, which I think everyone finds out in the program, that we can give you all the tools. We can tell you exactly how to do it and even make it as easy as possible. But if your mindset's not in the right place, like, that's where you have to start. And that's 90% of the battle. So how can people support you, man?
Man, appreciate that. For sure, you can reach out on social media, find me by any means. Good email to get a hold of me would be addprocoaching@gmail.com. That's ADDPRO coaching@gmail.com. My coaching service and what I do for people, I just believe in adding value to people. So that's why I call it add, because I believe everybody has value. And the more you can invest in them, that worth and that value can increase. And so when you add value to yourself, it will add value to your life, even monetarily, if you're doing it with business. So reach out, addprocoaching@gmail.com, or find me on social media, and we can set up a time to talk. And I'm a friendly guy. I'll be your friend. I'll be your coach. I'll support you. I'll help you however I can. But the main thing is find people that believe in you and believe you're worth it and believe that you have value, and they can bring that out in you. Thank y'all for having me on today, for sure, guys.
Thank you for coming, man. It's been great.
Absolutely.
Nice.
All right. On next week's episode of the Dads Who Live podcast, we talk about all kinds of different random shit, everything under the sun, all the way from metrosexuality and men to sex trafficking, and end on a positive note of how to be your best self coming out of the coronavirus pandemic.